interesting things about this owl. She's daytime. Nocturnal, and you see the facial disc on the barn owl?
Yeah.
That's indicative of whether they're nocturnal, or see, she has very little of a facial disc daytime because she's using her eyes rather than her hearing as her hunting tool.
Tissue paper amount of separation. They're so big that there's no room for musculature at all. There's no muscles. There's no eye muscles. So they can't wiggle their eyes. And instead they have got more neck bones. Mammals, all of us included, have 7 cervical vertebrae. All birds have 14. Wooza wooza. That means that you can turn your head lots more. 270 degrees in the case of this owl. That's 3/4 of a circle. I know you're watching something and it's a little concerning. I don't know what it is, but we'll keep an eye on it, okay? Good job. So for owls, that rotation is just simply making up for no eye muscle movement, and it allows them to do what they do, which is see everything like she's demonstrating right now. Pretty awesome. I don't know, there's something up in that darn redwood.
There's some songbirds up there.
Yeah, songbirds maybe. She's keeping her eye on it. You know, owls, this owl, a lot of people say, aren't they nocturnal? Why is she up during the day? She doesn't want to miss anything. You know, she was raised in captivity, and so she really understands that good things happen when people are up and active and going on. She loves being in front of an audience, so she doesn't want to miss that. But she's suited for nighttime hunting and existence. So she had to make her own living, which of course she doesn't. She gets room service. If she had to make her own living, being awake at night would be much more advantageous to her. Superior eyesight in low light capacity. And oh, look at that baby over there. Oh, I'm jealous. Look at that baby spectacle. Oh my God, there's nothing cuter than baby owls. Honest to goodness, that's a baby spectacled owl. It's all fuzzy in the fuzzy bucket stage. So they're waiting so they can fly. What time have we got? 22 after. I'm going to wrap it up real quick so they can do their demo. They're going to be right out here in front of us. I'm going to put her away, but if you have questions, please come up and ask, and then we can go from there. So thank you. I'm really sorry that was so protracted. Anyway, thank you so much. What a great baby.
How old is he?
Well, I could get one from Costa Rica, but I don't want to do the importation
Will he
stuff.
get a lot bigger?
No, he's full
Oh,
grown.
Okay, but he'll get less.
All right, hello everybody. We're shifting the stuffed owls because, as you see, she thinks she can eat them. I'm Kate Martin. This is my associate, Shauna Protzi, and we are with the West Coast Falconry Center. We're located in a little town called Browns Valley, which is in between Marysville and Grass Valley. But I'm a native Marinite, born in San Francisco, raised in Lagunitas, and moved out of the area in 2006. The dog will be a problem when we fly this bird, because her t-shirt literally reads, if it flies, it dies, if it runs, it's done. She has tried to go after dogs. So when we fly the bird, you're going to have to shift the pup or wrap your arms around her. So we hold a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Special Use Permit for falconry education. What that means to me is a lot of paperwork and reports. What that means to you is if you were to come up and visit, you could take a small tutorial with us, and you can fly one of our birds of prey. You wouldn't need to have a falconry permit, a hunting permit, an exhibition permit, a breeding permit, or any of the other things that we are required. So we're here to talk to you about our sport and the one thing that we're all here together with, which is the raptors, the birds of prey. This is about the only thing they're friendly about. They all vie for about 8,000 years of falconry history.
However, there's more. Who here has either heard or read the Epic of Gilgamesh?
It's actually on Audible, and it's quite an interesting listen.
Well, it's actually one of our oldest human-written stories. It's from the Assyrian-Sumerian culture. In that story, the Emperor Gilgamesh has to learn certain qualities to become a better emperor. He has to learn patience, humility, and compassion. So the gods send him to wild man Enkidu to put him through certain trials to learn those traits. Well, one of the trials that Enkidu puts Gilgamesh through is hunting with birds of prey. Now, depending on who you ask, many historians and archaeologists believe that that story was first written down in cuneiform 9,000 years ago. That's first written down because many archaeologists say, so just because it's written down in those ancient cultures, it was probably a spoken or oral tradition long before So we're looking at a sport that is just probably well over 10,000 years old, because keep in mind, in the story, they're hunting with these guys. Enkidu does not introduce falconry to the world. He just tries it out. Like, okay, somebody else did that, let's do it ourselves. So we don't actually know who the first person was in history to decide to try to use these birds in a hunting relationship, but it's pretty much lost in the antiquities of history, well over 10,000 years old on the other side of the world.
Right. This side of the world is a different story altogether. The Native Americans did not use birds of prey for hunting. They, of course, revere the birds. They honor them. They use pieces, parts for ritual and regalia. To an Indian from the desert Southwest, this bird on my glove is spirit. So it would never occur to them to have that kind of relationship. You have to wait, dear. Not yet. It would never occur to them to have that kind of relationship. The closest you're going to get to a hunting relationship would be in the far north where the Inuits are. There's bald eagles have this certain trait that they carry out in the spring. Anybody know what bald eagles like to do in the spring? They like to eat the salmon when the salmon are running. So all the people had to do was watch, and out of the general direction of the river, you see a bunch of bald eagles all go into the same restaurant. You know that there's fresh fish on Friday. It really wasn't until World War I and World War II, when our soldiers were fighting over in the Middle East, or over in Europe and in North Africa, they saw the sport practice and they fell in love with it and brought it over here. So less than 100 years here in the United States. Now, we are allowed to use, the two birds that we have on our gloves are, well, this is the most popular falconry bird in the world, bar none. This is a very popular bird here in the United States, and sometimes I think this should have been the national bird. Anybody know what kind of bird this is? Here in the United States, we are very fortunate to be able to use some birds out of the wild for falconry. Bear in mind, according to U.S. Fish and Wildlife, a report that was published in 2008, falconers could take 5% of any legal species and still have a positive impact. Birds of prey have a mortality rate between 50 to 80% in the first year. So those birds that we pull out of the wild are generally, they have to be less than a year old, and they're generally the ones that aren't doing well because they fall for something as simple as a trap. Shauna spent a whole bunch of money getting this bird healthy and happy.
And I've had her now, she's about 3 years old now, and she's been my hunting partner ever since, and my buddy on some level as well.
On some level.
On some level as well. Exactly. So also the bird here, though, on Kate's fist.
Anybody know what kind of bird this is? A hungry bird. What? Harris's hawk. The Harris hawk is very interesting. In 1965, a couple of guys wrote a book called North American Falconry and Hunting Hawks. It's now in its 9th edition. In the first 2 editions, there was a paragraph that said North American falconers should spend more time working with the Harris hawk. We think this is a bird that might make an interesting contribution to the sport of falconry. Now, if we were to go to Gleneagles Castle in the Highlands of Scotland, please, we could do distillery tours. We could also go hunting with a bird of prey. The laws are different there. You don't need a hunting license. You don't need a falconry license. Trot on down to the British School of Falconry. I want to go hunting with a bird of prey. You're going to hunt with a bird from the desert Southwest. In 50 years, this is the most popular bird for falconry, bar none. And it actually has revolutionized our sport. This is a Harris hawk. Southern Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, all the way down into South America. They get a little bit smaller down there. It's the only bird of prey that hunts in a pack. What other North American predator hunts in packs? Wolves. These guys are called the wolves of the air. A fellow named Jim Dawson did a movie about them several years ago where he followed a pack that had 14 adult birds in it. The pack is usually led by an alpha female. Go girls! She usually has at least 2 husbands. Go girls! And if there's a shortage of males, she will lend her husband out. Go boys! They are one of the most successful birds in North America because of this pack mentality. They actually, the adults will take high perches, and the sub-adults, the flighted younger birds, have a different coloring. The younger birds will flush the game, and the adults will ambush the game. They have specific, it's almost like a football team. You got some birds, their job is to block the game, other birds is to rush it and push it back in. And are you having fun over there?
Yeah, I had to help you out.
Ah, there you go. And so this bird, how it's revolutionized the sport for you guys is, as a non-falconer, this bird would fly to anybody with a glove on. She's just a brazen tart. That bird, it's hard to fly him even though you've had him for years and years and years. He's got a whole different attitude. The other way it's revolutionized it for us is if we were to take both of us take a falcon out, we'd have to hunt those falcons one at a time. If we put 2 falcons in the air at the same time, they'd probably try and kill each other. 2 red tails, 2 of any type of bird, except for the Harris hawks. The Harris hawks, non-migratory, you put them out in the field, they'll come stand next to each other, make a couple of noises, and then they'll hunt cooperatively. So it's taken our sport and made it a little bit more social. Desert Southwest, Sonoran Desert.
So
We
a lot of
used to
people,
have them actually in California until they built Edwards Air Force Base, and that kind of ruined the neighborhood.
so a lot of people look at what bringing us out the hawks first. You think falconry, you're bringing out hawks. Wait a second, where are the falcons? Well, the poster child for falconry is definitely going to be this falcon right here. But in falconry, we also use hawks, eagles, and if you're very highly motivated and not very hungry, you can also hunt with owls. But falcons are definitely the birds that started the sport perhaps in the beginning, because they would know what species of falcon this is. This is our peregrine falcon. This here is Time. He's our Millennium Falcon. He was born in 2000. And time flies when we're having fun. I've got time on my fist. Yada, yada, yada. It can go forever. So basically, the peregrine falcon, of course, has another story going along with this species as well. A story that most people know about. And that is, of course, the legacy of the falcon through the peregrine falcon. The peregrine falcon was an endangered species. We almost lost our peregrine falcons here in the United States. A lot of people don't know are some of the little interesting facts about that history concerning the peregrine falcon. The peregrine falcon on the eastern United States, which was the Anatim peregrine, there's about 23 subspecies. The Anatim peregrine is what lives throughout the United States. We have the tundra peregrine that migrates through from far north, and then we have the Peel's peregrine, which lives on the coast. The Anatim peregrine was the peregrine that was hit the hardest, and believe it or not, it was actually extinct on the east coast of the United States as well as in most areas of Europe. The reason that great decline happened in the 50s and 60s, 1950s and 60s, was because due to a pesticide called DDT. DDT was a pesticide that the birds are not directly interacting with, but what would happen is the farmers would spray DDT on their crops, the insects would eat those crops, the songbirds would eat those insects, and then of course the falcons would eat the songbirds. And what's happening with the falcon is when the mother falcon would lay her egg, her body could not produce enough calcium, so when she sat on her eggs, she actually crushed and broke her own eggs. Now, a lot of people don't know about this story is the involvement of falconers. Falconers, since the very beginning of time, have been watching the birds and their nests forever and ever and ever, because for many, many, many years, that is how we were able to get our birds, was from the wild. And even today, we can legally take birds from the wild at certain ages. We just can't go free for all. Certain species and certain ages we can take. So falconers in the 50s and 60s, they would be eyeing the ocean scrapes and cliffs where they knew the peregrine falcons were nesting, just to make sure that either birds that had released that were their hunting partners or future generations were doing good, because we care about these birds' survival in the wild. What they were finding were the nests were empty. They rappelled down to see what's going on, and they found the crushed eggs. Some of those falconers were biologists, but also they started to talk to biologists as well and say, hey, what's going on? What's happening to our peregrine falcon? Well, they found, of course, the connection was DDT. Now, these falconers and the biologists then went to the government, and they said, the peregrine falcon is there's something going on with the peregrine falcon. We need help. We need to figure out what to do. U.S. Fish and Wildlife said, no one's bred those birds in captivity before. It's a done deal. There's nothing we can do. Too bad, so sad. We have to let the bird just go. Nothing we can do about it. Believe it or not, despite falconry being over 10,000 years old, these birds were never bred in captivity before. It was the joint effort of biologists and falconers in the 1950s and 60s who came together to learn how to breed these guys in captivity, because before that, the only birds, if they were not falconry birds, if they were in captivity, they were in zoos. Imagine being a couple birds in a zoo and having all you guys look at you 8 hours a day. Are you gonna feel like having a family with a bunch of people looking at you all day?
Especially because we're predators. Our eyes are in the front of our faces. So to this bird, as a wild bird, I'm a predator staring at him. He figures he's just going to be dinner. They're not going to procreate. Not a safe venue.
Exactly. But also those falconers, they actually donated their own peregrine falcons to be used as breeding stock for the peregrine fund. And it's because of that joint effort of biologists and falconers that the peregrine falcon was actually delisted. It's no longer federally listed as an endangered species. And today, everybody, the peregrine falcon in California, there are more breeding pairs numbered in the state of California than ever counted before in history. It is a major success story what we were able to do together, because if it was not for falconry and how we knew how to work with these birds and also create everything we know of the sport, the glove, all this equipment is something that has not changed in thousands of years. All this equipment's been used for thousands of years. Maybe the materials have changed, what the equipment's made from.
And we have telemetry.
And we have telemetry now, so we can find our birds if they fly away.
Didn't like it all.
But that's pretty much it. So this is a wonderful success story, what we did the Peregrine Falcon, because if the Peregrine Fund started all the breeding programs of birds of prey that you've heard of, the bald eagle breeding program to help bring the bald eagle back from the brink of extinction. The current going on of the California condor is because of that original effort as well. And also a little bit of the bird that Kate has on her glove as well.
So this is not a bird that's typically used for falconry at all. As a matter of fact, when the bird was brought to me, I had to look at my books to figure out what it was. This is a bird that was found as a baby, and it was taken by a wildlife center, and one of the staff of the wildlife center imprinted this bird on people. So when this bird gets hungry, guess what he does? He attacks people and tries to get them to feed him. This is a Swainson's hawk. The Swainson's hawk has been a threatened species since the mid-1980s. Swainson's hawk has the largest migratory path of any raptor in North America, 12,000 miles round trip. Swainson hawk does something much like the bald eagles. The bald eagles all like to go after the salmon at the same time. Swaineys all go down to Argentina and Venezuela, and they eat the locusts down there. Well, all those poisons that we no longer use on our crops here, guess what Monsanto does with those? They sell them to South America and Africa. And in 2008 in Argentina, they found 35,000 dead Swainson's hawks. And it was through the efforts of falconers, people from the Audubon, you know, people that care about raptors, birds of prey, pressuring the governments down there to stop using this poison. And this year, this falconer, Jim Dawson, who's also a biologist, said that the population of the Swainson's hawk has stabilized, which means that now we're hopefully going to see an increase. Of course, all raptors have a hard time with loss of habitat. You know, you see it a lot, like a lot of vineyards where they just cut everything down and all they have are the vines. The vineyards that do the best are the vineyards that have riparian habitat, because that encourages the Cooper's hawks, it encourages the barn owls, we love barn owls, it encourages a lot of those raptors, and those raptors are very beneficial for the vineyards, you know, they eat all the pest birds. And that gentleman with water, could you please grab a couple of those for us? Thank you. So we're going to kind of shift a little bit from falconry to conservation, because most falconers, you know, not only, thank you, Trinka, are we excited about our birds, we're also excited about the prey. Did you want some love?
Yes, just leave it there on the table for me, thank you.
Thanks, Trinka.
So here on my fist right here, this is obviously not a hawk at any level. And this is actually not a bird that is used in the sport of falconry. But the core of any conservation effort is education. And this is one of our educational ambassadors at the West Coast Falconry Center. This here is Zopalote cathartes, which from where he comes from basically means, Zopalote means vulture, and also cathartes means the purifier, because that's the vulture's role in the wild. They are the purifier. Zopalote cathartes is not one of our native turkey vultures, even though he looks very similar to his northern cousins. This is actually a South American species of vulture. This is the lesser yellow-headed vulture. And they are found down mostly in Brazil, in the savannas of Brazil. That's where you'll find these birds. And he has lovely, lovely face paint going on. Looks like he went to a carnival going on with his face right there. Vultures, again, a lot of people don't think about, when they think about conservation, they talk about, oh, raptors and conservation. Well, peregrine falcon, the Swainson's hawk, you know, they think of hawks and eagles and falcons. And outside of the condor, we really don't think about vultures. Everyone here knows what the condor really is, right? It's really a vulture with a really pretty name because it's huge, okay? California condors weren't as big as they are, they would be the California vulture probably, or something like that. But they are vultures, and vultures have one specific role. What is their one specific role? What do?
They scavenge, they eat dead prey.
Eat dead animals. They eat dead animals. Nobody wants their job. But we're thankful they have that job. We have to be thankful for it, because imagine what this world would smell like if these guys were not around, okay? What's really interesting, a lot of people don't know about vultures, is vultures actually, they use their sense of smell to find their food. This is actually one of only a handful of bird species in the world that actually has a sense of smell. A vulture like this can actually smell something rotting from a mile away. So that's how keen their sense of smell is.
And you don't need to duck, she's not going to run into you. All right, right there is a good spot. Do you see your target there?
No, they don't.
Wow. We do it again. Mary. No dogs. Mary. Right here. The way that you get a Harris hawk to come with you is to walk away. Remember, they're a pack animal. If you turn around and walk away, she's going to go, wait a minute, where are you guys going? You can play hide and seek with a Harris hawk. You can't play hide and seek with an owl. The owl will just sit there and try and figure out where you went. Yeah. Now, bear in mind, one of the things, can you guys please stop running? Thank you. One of the fallacies about falconry, mariposa, we are told, people often think that we starve our birds to get them to go hunting. This bird takes 6 to 9 pound jackrabbits. Can you guys stop moving, please? Those kids that are walking through the crowd, just be still. Thank you. Where did she just go? Oh, there she is. So people think that we starve our birds to get them to do their thing. This bird weighs 2 pounds. I say that birds fly an average of 20 minutes a day. So 20 minutes a day is the average flight for a wild raptor. Now we're not talking migration, not something completely different, but you know, they're predators. Are you going to expend a lot of energy to get your food? No, because you're going to burn through it really quick. And we have to wrap up in a rather clumsy way because I guess we're running out of time. So thank you guys so much.
Definitely thank you very much, folks. We are West Coast Falconry. If you want brochures about our facility, please come up and ask for brochures. We are located outside of Marysville. We are hoping to be the first full-fledged falconry center in the United States. So please come up and talk to us about the programs that we offer and the experiences we can offer you, your families, your organizations, your schools, anything like that. Otherwise, folks, thank you ever so much.
I like that. 3 inches tall. Oops, sorry. 3 inches tall and feisty.
How heavy is that bird?
That's good.
About 2.5 pounds. He weighed 1,200 grams, a little more than 1,200. Yeah, they have a lot of wings, which is light as a feather, and hollow bones, and not much skeleton besides, you know, it's...
It looks like it'd be hard to hold on to.
Yeah, after a while. Well, and as she was explaining about her Harris hawk, is that what she was flying, was the Harris hawk? That they will catch prey that weigh 10 pounds, but they don't weigh, you know, they themselves don't. So they can drag it away a little bit.
Muscles there.
No. Yes.
Well, they're all found locally. These are all found in Sonoma County. You will find all of these.
So potentially that could be the one that's putting in my tree at night, right?
It's
Yes.
going to be that one.
That one's going to be the...
I know. Well, they got a little more raised when he saw that hawk flying. It woke him up and put him on the alert, and his ears, his tufts went up. So
They're just gorgeous.
they are. They're very pretty.
He said, I don't have everybody on
Yes.
I really, really never get to see them.
Well, you know, and then the ones you see, they're never going to get released, but oh well, we do. They're ambassadors. They are. That's what we call them. Yes. And we trade off. They get shelter is guaranteed, food is guaranteed, a longer life is guaranteed.
There's plenty of older humans that go for that.
And then there's plenty, you know, freedom is in a little compromise.
Do they get nervous with all the people?
What's your name?
My name's Elaine Friedman, and I'm with Corvid Connection. And this is Darth Vader. And Darth Vader is 12 years old. He fell out of his nest when he was a juvenile. He couldn't fly. He fell on the ground, broke a couple of toes. When he was found, his toes were necrotic, had to be taken off. During the surgery, he seizured, threw some blood clots, and destroyed his vision. So he is vision impaired. He does track with his head, and so you can see the head moving back and forth. Now, ravens are the smartest birds in the world. If you have a backpack and you're hiking, a raven can come down, steal your backpack, open it up, steal your car keys, cache them, bury them a couple of miles away under a rock. They're as smart as monkeys. They can solve puzzles. You can play a shell game with them. They take care of their kids for 6 months. They teach them to be really good ravens, and then they turn their kids loose. And so the juvenile ravens form a gang, and they defend a food find against the adult ravens. And so there is a high thought process in all of these guys. Yes, I know. You're a good boy. Yes.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, so what question were you asking me?
People generally want to know what the difference between a raven and a crow is.
Okay, the difference between a raven and a crow, if you look at the size of this bird, if I were to have a crow on my other hand, that crow would only be about 1/3 the size of this bird. He is a medium-sized raven. If you see the ravens in Alaska, they're almost twice as big as this guy. But look at the beak. This beak is much more prominent, much more broad than you would see on a crow. Their tail is a different shape. In flight, this bird has a wedge-shaped tail. When you see a crow in flight, that tail is square or is flat to the vision. And as far as their vocalizations, this guy has a much deeper voice, although he could mimic a crow. And so you might hear something that you think is a crow, but it turns out to be a raven. And these guys, a lot of people don't realize they can mimic human speech. So they can speak in multiple words, and they do understand the meaning of those words. So for instance, one of the ravens that I work with, we give them goldfish crackers as a treat. And so when we approach with the enrichment box, that raven will look up and say goldfish cracker because she knows there's a goldfish cracker going to be hidden in that box. Yeah, so these are amazing guys. They see a little bit differently than we do. If you put a tower of Lego blocks in front of them, they'll be afraid of it. They'll get to learn that it's okay. But if you put that tower on its side, then the bird will be afraid of it again. So they don't see things the way they do, the way we do. They see things spatially very different than we do. And they also are very, very conscious of everything around them, any movement. The way they cache is they look at all the landmarks around. And so when they come back to find something, if you've moved the boulders or the rocks or the landmarks, they're not going to be able to find their cache because they do it based on everything that's around them. They're just incredible animals. They don't forget. They speak a dialect. The ravens that you see on the East Coast are not going to speak the same dialect as the ravens that you see on the West Coast. And when they're in a huge flock of ravens, they can find their mates or they can find their juveniles based on the language that they are passing back and forth. There's so much that I could tell you about them. They live all over the world, except for the open ocean, because they can adapt to any type of habitat, find food, shelter, and water. And what else? What else, Vader? They eat dead things?
They eat dead. You know, I was talking to you earlier, and I mentioned that I had been on Mount McKinley, and at the 19,000 foot level, I saw ravens flying around.
And if you flag where you put something, they know that a flag indicates something, so they'll dig it out to find out what is at the bottom of it.
They have dug out many caches buried less than 6 feet deep. You have to go about 6 feet deep in McKinley to bury a cache because these guys will get it out.
And what he was doing just now was known as a rattle call. It can be a sexual call, but it can also be a challenging call. The dominant females also do a rattle call, but the way to tell the difference between a male and a female without DNA sexing them, the female does a clucking type of call that the male does not do. So if you hear a raven that's clucking, that's a girl.
And did he just cluck?
No, he rattled. Yes. He was telling us he's the big macho raven. And if you happen to think that you're a bigger raven than him, he'll beat you up.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.